In this video, I'm gonna talk about the 10 darkest Disney villains. We all know Disney has a lot of awesome villains, but these ones have really dark stories. So, let's get right into the video and find out who these villains are and what makes them so dark. Let's start with Syndrome from The Incredibles. He used to be a big fan of Mr. Incredible, and as a kid, he called himself Buddy Pine and Incrediboy. But later on, he turned into a bad guy named Syndrome who didn't like superheroes. Some other Disney villains might have sadder backstories, but Syndrome's story is pretty sad too. He was really smart and created cool weapons, vehicles, and other awesome gadgets. He could have used his powers for good instead of evil, but he was angry and wanted revenge. At first, Buddy wanted to be Mr. Incredible's sidekick and even made himself into Incrediboy. But Mr. Incredible didn't want him as a sidekick, which made Buddy really mad. Even after 15 years, he was still angry about it. He became a villain and tried to take out Mr. Incredible, his family, and all the other superheroes. His actions were mostly driven by his anger and bitterness, making Syndrome's story quite dark. Next, let's talk about Sid from Toy Story. In the movie, toys could think and feel just like real people, which made Sid, the mean 11-year-old boy next door, more than just an ordinary kid. Sid liked to do awful things to toys, like blowing them up, burning them, and taking them apart while pretending to be a crazy doctor. In the real world, Sid's actions might seem creative, but in Toy Story, they made him seem like a maniac. The toys were scared of him because he did terrible things to them. Although Sid wasn't a real Disney villain, he caused a lot of fear in the toys. He didn't know that the toys could feel and think like humans, so he didn't realize he was hurting them. Sid changed his ways after the toys showed him that they were alive, which made him the only human who found out that toys had feelings too. The next one is Hades from Hercules. He's the god of the underworld, making his backstory one of the darkest in Disney. Hades is the fast-talking jealous brother of Zeus. He thought he got a bad deal in life, so he came up with a plan to take over Mount Olympus and become the king of the gods. Even though Hades was strong, he felt like he could never be as good as his brother. He hated his job and the sad, gloomy underworld. It's hard to think of a darker backstory than an immortal god who hates his own life. As the ruler of the hellish place shown in Hercules and Greek mythology, everything around Hades was awful and depressing. A god who cursed his own never-ending life had one of the darkest backstories in a Disney movie. Hades was always sad and angry, which led him to plan evil things. It made his story even worse when his plan to take over Mount Olympus was stopped by a half-human demigod. Now let's talk about Scar from The Lion King. His backstory is about being jealous and bitter, especially because it's all about family problems. Scar is Mufasa's brother, the king of the jungle, and he always felt like he was living in Mufasa's shadow. He was jealous, resentful, and felt like he was the one who should be king. These feelings made him come up with a plan to get revenge, kill his own brother, and steal the throne. Scar's story is really dark, mainly because he was willing to do something as terrible as killing his own family member and messing up the peace in the jungle. The whole story paints his life as being full of anger and sadness. Even after taking the throne, things didn't get any better. Under his rule, the jungle suffered and things went from bad to worse. Scar had a lot of issues with feeling like he wasn't good enough, and his story of betraying his family and messing up their relationships was pretty dark for a Disney villain. Next up is Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Ursula is a really evil sea witch who pretends to grant people's wishes, but instead makes horrible deals that make the merfolk super unhappy. She was banished by King Triton, so Ursula had an extra reason to ruin Ariel's life. She took away Ariel's voice and transformed her into a human, which caused Ariel a lot of trouble. Her appearance was super scary, with her dark tentacles that looked like an octopus. Ursula was really sneaky and didn't care how low she had to go to get what she wanted. She used lies and magic tricks to fool people into trusting her. She enjoyed seeing people suffer, and what made her even more evil was that she acted like she was the answer to all the merfolk's problems. But instead of helping them, Ursula made sure they failed and then stole their souls. She had no empathy or regret for the pain she caused, which made her a truly sinister villain. And now let's talk about one of the most mysterious villain, Man from Bambi. We never actually see him in the movie, but Man is the hunter who caused one of the saddest moments in Disney history. He may not be seen as truly evil by human standards, but for the animals in Bambi, he was the scariest, most depressing presence. Even though Man never speaks in the film, the terrible things he does are unforgettable. He seems sneaky, cruel, and destructive, and doesn't seem to care about animals' well-being. He hunts down Bambi's mom for sport, which leaves the young deer all alone without his loving mother. The way Man is shown in Bambi feels really dark because it represents a sad truth in the real world. Hunters often shoot deer, leaving their babies without parents. This realistic portrayal of life in nature makes Man one of the darkest and most devastating Disney villains. Now let's discuss Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. She's an evil fairy with a fancy style, and her bad attitude caused a lot of trouble for King Stefan's kingdom. People called her the mistress of all evil because she was always angry. When she got mad about not being invited to Princess Aurora's party, she cursed the poor baby to die when she turned 16. She didn't mind waiting a long time to get her revenge. Maleficent was truly a wicked fairy, both dark and sneaky. She acted like she was better than everyone else, even calling her allies pets. She could change shape and use powerful dark magic, making her one of the most powerful Disney villains. Maleficent used her powers selfishly and didn't care if she hurt others. Even though she was the villain in Sleeping Beauty, we got to see her side of the story in the live-action movies Maleficent and its sequel, where Angelina Jolie played her. Next up is Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. She's different from other Disney villains because she doesn't have magical powers. She's just a regular person, which makes her even scarier. Cruella is crazy about fashion, and her horrible plan is to make a spotted fur coat using the skins of Dalmatian puppies. She really lives up to her name, saying a lot of terrible things and not feeling bad about the awful things she does. She has a unique look that makes her stand out. She has half black, half white hair, always wears her signature mink coat, and constantly smokes. Her skinny figure and sneaky attitude make her seem even more evil. Cruella absolutely loves attention and only cares about herself. She never shows any kindness or empathy for others, especially those adorable puppies. In live-action movies, Cruella is just as terrible as in the animated version, and she's been played by famous actresses like Glenn Close and Emma Stone. Next is Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The movie is about whether someone is a monster because of how they look or how they act. Frollo is a really bad guy who's a religious leader. He's truly one of the darkest Disney villains because he uses his power to control people and treats Quasimodo terribly, even killing his mother. Frollo has no good side at all, and what makes him even worse is that he does these awful things in the name of God. He is heartless, thinks he's always right, only cares about himself, and loves attention. He lives a life where he makes others feel bad just so he can feel better about himself. He's a complicated and dark Disney villain, filled with hate and having a really bad opinion of society. The worst part is that Frollo actually thinks he's a good person, and his huge ego stops him from seeing how cruel and terrible he's become. Last but not least is Mother Gothel from Tangled. She's the main villain in the movie and might be the darkest Disney villain because her goals and actions feel real and relatable. She is a vain and deceitful woman who found a magical flower that kept her looking young and beautiful. To keep using the flower's magic, she kidnapped Rapunzel and locked her up in a tower for years. What makes Gothel so dark is that she controlled Rapunzel by making her feel guilty, ashamed, and questioning her own sanity. Mother Gothel is like an overprotective parent, making her a complex villain. She adds depth to the group of Disney antagonists. She's greedy, selfish, and often lies to Rapunzel, making her feel bad about herself and her abilities. She is the darkest Disney villain because she acts like some real-life parents who hold their kids back, make them feel small, or make fun of their dreams.